Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list, as you can see, is the top 10 notes that are under $100. Top 10 notes under $100. Now, I should have probably done this one a long time ago because, well, obviously, when you're starting off in collecting, you're not going to run out and pay $2,000 for a note. You're usually going to start small and you work your way up to there. So, what I decided was I was going to go through and find 10 notes under $100, very affordable notes that are still cool notes to have in your collection. So let's take a look at what I gathered together. Number 10. Number 10, I started out with probably the cheapest notes you're going to find. Now, these notes always make me scratch my head. These are the 1935G silver certificates. Now, what makes these notes so interesting is the fact that you'd think they're the same, Series 1935G. Now, there's one important difference in these notes, and that is the motto. On the back, you can see this one says, "In God We Trust." This one does not. So that's the part that makes me scratch my head on these two notes. Because, first of all, these are Series 1935G. What does that tell you? Well, that tells you that there was a 1935A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way to G. Actually, they even went to H. So, why, halfway through the run, did they go with G and "In God We Trust"? That would seem to have been a really good time to switch from G to H, at the very least. Now, the other thing that makes me scratch my head on these notes is that these notes were printed, the ones with "In God We Trust," were printed in 1956. Now, there are no 1953 $1 silver certificates, but there are 1953 $5 and $10 silver certificates. So the 1953 series existed. So you would think that if they were going to do something as drastic as, I don't know, add the motto on the back of the bill, you wouldn't do that halfway through the print run. You'd probably, start a brand new print run, start a brand new series. This could have very easily been a 1953 with "In God We Trust" on it. But they didn't. They went with G, and then they continued even after 1956 with the H version. So yeah, I scratch my head a lot with these. I find them interesting. The best part about it is you can own the pair of these notes for $10. They're about $5 a piece, in decent shape, in really good shape. You can $5-6 a piece. Poor condition, you're going to find them for maybe face value or a little over. So yeah, easy notes to add to your collection, and you can see that by the story I tell them, there's a lot of info to be had about these particular ones. So that's number 10 on my list. Number 9. Number 9 on my list, I have a national currency. This is a First Wisconsin National Bank of Milwaukee note. Now, a national bank note is different from a Federal Reserve note. A Federal Reserve bank note was guaranteed by the individual Federal Reserves. This was guaranteed by the individual national bank. In order for a national bank to be able to do this, they had to earn a charter. So the federal government would come out, make sure that the bank was solvent. They would issue a charter number. This particular one is a really low charter number, 64. These charter numbers can go all the way up to almost 15,000, if I recall correctly. So these are unusual notes. They were put out in 1929. 1929 is, that right there. Let's see, right there, 1929. Now they made $5, $10, $20, $50, $100. The $5 note, these are affordable. This particular one I got for, this one books out at somewhere around $80. Now when you're looking for when you're looking for national banknotes, one thing to consider is the size of the city. The smaller the city, the more expensive they're going to be, and generally the further west, the more they're going to be as well. So if you find a note from New York, that one's probably going to be fairly cheap. Whereas if you're looking for a note from Anchorage, Alaska, that's going to be really expensive. But anyway, that would be number 9 on my list. A national banknote, $5 denomination. Like I said, these can be had for as little as $80. That's number 9. Number 8. It's hard to believe you can get a note this old for this cheap. what this is the first issue of fractional currency. The first issue of fractional currency was called postage currency or postal currency, and it was put out during the Civil War. This particular note is from 1862. This note's over 150 years old, coming up on 160 years old. Now, what this is during the start of the Civil War, it was very difficult to find change. So the federal government got together with the post office, and they started printing postage currency to help alleviate that with everybody hoarding change. Now, this particular note, a 50-cent note, is neat because you can see they took the image of the 10-cent note, which looks like a stamp, and just printed it 5 times. 5 10-cent stamps would be 50 cents. Now, those aren't actually stamps on there. They're just images of the stamps. This wasn't designed to be tore apart or anything like that. But nonetheless, this note can be had. You can see I found this one for less than $50. You're going to pay, even in good shape, $60, $75 for a note from the 1860s. That is definitely something to consider adding to your collection. All right. Number 7. Number 7 on the list, this is from 1928, a 1928 $20 bill. Now, what makes this so special? Well, 1928 was the first year that notes of this size were issued. Prior to 1928, we used large size notes that were basically a third bigger. They would come out to here, and, well, you'll see later on. Anyway, what also makes the 1928 series cool is it had the statement on here, redeemable in gold on demand. Now, a lot of people will call this a gold certificate. It is not. All cash was redeemable for gold in 1928. So this is not a gold certificate. A gold certificate is backed by gold. Now, the other thing that makes this note cool is this part right here. Now, this particular note is from Chicago, Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, and Chicago has the designation of 7, and they also keyed in the 7th letter of the alphabet, G. So you've got the sevens, and you've got the serial number starting with G. So that is all connected that way. But what is interesting is that they did not use the G in the center. They used the numeral. They only did that in the 1928 series. If you get 1928A, 1928B, it's going to have a letter there, not a number. So in order to find a 1928, that's what you're looking for. That number there, that's what makes these rare. That's what makes these so desirable. This particular note, the 1928 $20 Federal Reserve, starts off about $50 or so. And pretty cool, neat to have just because of that numeral right there. Next up, number 6 on my list, I decided to go with World War II emergency currency. This particular one is the $5 North Africa note. There's also the Hawaii notes. Hawaii made denominations of 1, 5, 10, and 20, where the North Africa notes are just the 1, the 5, and the 10. Now, all the North Africa notes are silver certificates, and I'm kind of partial to the North Africa note because you have this bright yellow seal contrasting the blue numeral here. To me, that just stands out really nicely, so I'm a huge fan of this particular note. The Hawaii note is going to have a brown seal over here, and it's going to say Hawaii on the sides, and it's going to say Hawaii across the back. The North Africa note has nothing to designate it as North Africa other than that yellow seal. Seeing the contrast in color like that always makes this an exciting note to find, and you also want to find one in decent shape so you can appreciate the contrast in color like that. Now, the $5 denomination of both of those are the key note in the series. They didn't print as many of the $5 denominations. Normally, I like 10s when I'm collecting money like this, but this one, the 5, is the tough one. These are going to start off about $50 or so, and you can easily find one in good shape for $70, $80. And like I said, that's the hard one. That's the $5 note. Oddly enough, the $10 note starts off at about $40. So yeah, this one is more expensive than the 10, but still well under that $100 limit. All right, 10, 9, 8, 7, that was 6. Number 5. Number 5 on my list would be a 1917 $2 bill. 1917 $2 bill. This particular one happens to be a replica of an older version of the bill. The only difference here is this one has the rainbow back. If you get rid of the color on the back, the blue transforming into green like that, that is what note I am talking about. A 1917 $2 bill looks like currency from the 1800s. It doesn't look like 20th century currency. Has a very old and unique look to it. This particular one, you can see the back over right there. The $2 note, like I said, it has a historical and aged look to it. This, like I said, glancing at this, you'd be surprised that this was from the 1900s. You can usually find the $2 bill for about $75. That's where it starts off. Be aware some of the signature combinations are going to be a lot more expensive. So if you're having difficulty finding one that's affordable, double check the signature combinations. There is one that is very affordable. FR60 is the number. That one starts off, like I said, at $60. That's number 5. Great. Yep. Number 4 on the list. Number 4, we're going with a Federal Reserve banknote. This one is from 1918. 1918 Federal Reserve note, $1 note. It is known as the Flying Eagle. The Flying Eagle Federal Reserve note, Federal Reserve banknote, I should say. This one is backed by New York. Of course, you can find Federal Reserve banknotes with all the different banks on there. But what makes this one is the back. I'm not too impressed by the front, but the back, the Flying Eagle, is a very cool image. Very reminiscent of the Flying Eagle penny as well. But the Flying Eagle on the $1 Federal Reserve banknote from 1918. This one you can find for $75 to $85. That's where it's going to start out at. This one, like I said, is one of the large size notes. When you compare it to one of the small size notes, you can see the difference in size there. So yeah, to be able to get a large size note like this for under $100, especially one that's got a name like the Flying Eagle, that is a good note to have. So that's number 4. Number 3, another small size note. This one also from 1928. This particular one is a red seal, a legal tender note, a $1 1928 legal tender note. Now, these are extremely rare to find because when they were issued to help out Puerto Rico. These were distributed in Puerto Rico to help them with their currency situation over there. So these were tough to get in 1928 around here. Much tougher to get now. Mine is not in the greatest of shape, but I do have one, and I did get it for under $100. It does have the funny back look on there. The red seal from 1928. These go for, this particular one was $90. You can generally find them for right around that $100 mark in pretty decent shape. This one, like I said, was a little bit rough, but I wanted to get one. So this is what I got. Now I've got one to upgrade. That's number 3 on my list. Number 2. One of the more surprising notes that actually made this list, this is a 1928 $10 gold certificate. Who'd have thunk you could get a $10 gold certificate? Who'd have thought you could get a gold certificate for under $100? The $10 gold certificate is the lowest denomination gold certificate out there. The $10 gold certificate, this one being the small sized, is the newest and the smallest denomination, thus making it the most affordable. But that isn't going to last very long. With the demand for people starting to collect notes, this one is starting to grow in demand. Generally speaking, you're talking about this note being somewhere around $90 to $100. And this particular one I had graded. I bought it graded, so I knew what I was getting into right away. So yeah, $10 gold certificate from 1928. You can get it for under $100. Add that one to your collection. And finally, number 1 on my list, an $18.99 $1 Black Eagle. $1 Black Eagle, this silver certificate is always a pretty note to find in your collection. I've told you guys how I acquired mine. I acquired mine for well under $100. I ended up getting this one for about $60 or so. Generally, they're going to be priced at about $100. You can usually talk them down a little bit because they are one of the more popular notes. So you do happen to see a lot of these. So if you see one in good shape, maybe spend up a little bit for it, but you can get one for well under $100. It's always cool to have a note that has a date that says 18 something on it. Let me find it on here. There it is. Act of 1886. And if we turn it this way, series of 1899. So that is my $1 Black Eagle, number one on my list as far as notes under $100. All right, guys, that's my list. If you agree with my list, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. I appreciate you guys watching. If you have an idea for a list, go ahead and send that down in the comments, and if I use it, I'll make sure to put your name in here as well. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next week.